We're going to graph the parent tangent function. The tangent points come from the sine values, which is y, cosine, which is x. So tangent is going to be y over x. That's if we're looking at the unit circle, but we could also look at the sine and cosine graphs. So for example, at 0, the sine is 0 because that's the y value, or we could look right here on the sine graph. And at 0, the cosine, the x, is 1. Then the tangent is y over x, so that's going to be 0 divided by 1, which is 0. Pi over 4 is going to be right here. The y value is radical 2 over 2, and the cosine is radical 2 over 2. So the tangent is going to be radical 2 over 2 divided by radical 2 over 2, which is the same number over the same number. So when you divide them, you're going to get 1. Pi over 2, the y value is 1, and the x value is 0. Or you could look at pi over 2. You have 1 for sine. At pi over 2, you have 0 for cosine. And you can do 1 divided by 0, which is going to be undefined because you can't have 0 in the denominator. 3 pi over 4, the y value will be radical 2 over 2. The x is negative radical 2 over 2, so when you divide, you'll get negative 1. And pi, the y value is 0. The cosine is negative 1, and so we divide and get 0. Then you can go ahead and plot the points on the graph from the table. And I drew the graph so that this is what it looks like once we plot all of those points plus more in the positive and negative direction. A couple things to note that is different from the parent functions of sine and cosine is that the amplitude doesn't exist on the tangent graph because there's no height from the midline, because it goes infinitely tall in both directions because the range is negative infinity to infinity. And we see that on the graph because of the arrows. Another big difference between sine and cosine versus tangent is that the period for sine and cosine is 2 pi, but if you look at the tangent graph, one complete cycle is only pi long. Pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is pi. So this one cycle's length, or the period, is pi. And also notice it doesn't start right at 0. The y-axis cuts the first cycle in half, so half of it goes to the left and half of it goes to the right.